Okay, so second set of review notes for the night. Expanding polynomials again. This is some pretty basic review, but like I said, we want to work on our basics, make sure they're pretty strong before we kind of get into a few of the more complicated topics. Practicing these things is always good. Just like order of operations, I make these mistakes all the time too. Devil's in the details. You make a lot of small mistakes here and there. It's not the end of the world. It's okay. But again, if we practice these skills and just feel more confident in them, the rest of the year is going to be a little bit easier. If you're struggling with this now, you can ask me some questions. We can clear up some misconceptions. We can make our life a little bit better. All right, so expansion. When I say expand polynomials, that means multiply things out. So example 1, you guys learned this again, like back in pre-algebra. This is just the basic distributive property. I kind of gave you a pretty easy one. Let's pretend that I didn't make everything the same variable, so you can just kind of do this straightforward. Here, I'm going to distribute first. Let's actually not do the parentheses. Let's ignore the fact that I made that such an easy thing. So I will turn this into 14x squared minus 6x squared. I've got like terms here of x squareds, that 14 and that 6, so I can turn this into 8x squared. Obviously, I could have made this a lot better. I could have actually done my order of operations like a real mathematician would have. I would have called that 2x times 4x, and I would have called that 8x squared. I would have gotten the same answer. But the point of this is expanding polynomials. We all make our mistakes, just like I give you some really easy problems. But I've still shown you what the distributive property is. You can solve a problem via the distributive property or order of operations. No harm, no foul. So we're all good here. It gets a little bit more complicated. So here, I say the word expand all the time. You've probably heard this referred to as FOIL in the case of when you're multiplying two binomials. I hate the term FOIL because once we get beyond two binomials, we're not talking about first, outer, inner, last anymore. Expand, 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 expand. Whenever I say the word expand, that means multiply them out. And we can still think of it with that FOIL term of how I'm going to distribute my 3x to both of these terms. So it's going to become 6x squared minus 12x. I'm going to distribute that negative 7 to both of my terms. So I'll have minus 14x plus 28. And then I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms here. The only terms that I have that are like are my x's. So I'm left with 6x squared minus 26x plus 28. And this would be my final answer because I'm just trying to expand and simplify it. People in the past have asked me, can I factor out a 2? I don't want to factor out a 2 when I'm expanding. I'm trying to turn this from a factored form into an expanded form. So 6x squared minus 26x plus 28 is my final one there because I distribute each term to each other. The reason I don't like FOIL is because of this example here. If I use the term FOIL and I started talking about first, inner, outer, last, well, I've got a first. What's my outer? What's the inner? And the last, that means I'm skipping entire terms. I don't want to think in terms of FOIL. I want to think in terms of expanding. And I like thinking in terms of expanding as I'm just doing the distributive property with every single term here. So I've got negative x and I'm distributing it to every single term of that other polynomial that I'm multiplying it by. I have to pay attention to my signs, and I'm going to group all my signs with the sign in front of it. So when I do my multiplication, I'm going to treat this as a negative x multiplied by a negative 3x squared. So that means I've got positive 3x cubed minus x squared plus 3x because I have a negative times a negative. Just like I'm going to distribute this positive 5 to all three terms. And I treat it as a positive 5 because, again, it's got that positive right up front of it. So now I've got minus 15. Let me do this in the same color because we're on the same line now. So I've got minus 15x squared plus 5x minus 15. And now that I've done this, now that I've multiplied all my polynomial, now that I multiplied both these polynomials, now that I've distributed both my first and second term to all terms of that second polynomial, I'm going to combine my like terms. So I've got 3x cubed minus 16x squared plus 8x minus 15. And I stop here because I've done everything I need to do. Example 4, expand and simplify the following. So here, I've got subtraction in between. Make sure we pay attention. If I've got subtraction in between my parentheses, what I do is I'm going to treat this as a -1, and I'm going to distribute that negative to both of these terms. It's going to be like I multiply by -1. Just like over here, when I have this 1/2 x, I'm going to expand it, I'm going to multiply it, distribute it to all of those terms. Once I have an operation in between two parentheses, I'm not multiplying these parentheses. So I'm not sending the 4x over there. I'm not multiplying. I'm subtracting what's on the inside of the other parentheses from what's going to be distributed from the first parentheses, and I make sure that I distribute that negative sign as a -1. So what I have right now is 2x cubed, because 1/2 times 4 is 2. 1/2 times 8 is 4. X times x is x squared, plus 5x. And then I'm going to subtract 7x, and I'm going to subtract 9 from that. I get 2x cubed minus 4x squared minus 2x. Those are my only like terms, minus 9, and then that is the most simple term. So I reviewed a couple other skills in here, like remember whenever you multiply exponents, so if I had like x squared times x cubed, that's equal to x to the 5th, because when you multiply variables with exponents, you add them together, so that becomes x to the 5th. So I kind of reviewed that a little bit. That's something that we should know coming into this class, but we're going to practice it with this expansion of polynomials. You've got a second worksheet on Google Classroom to go along with that order of operations worksheet. I realize that 2 worksheets is kind of a lot, but these are block scheduled days. These are some pretty basic review skills. I think this is something you can handle. Make sure you're checking your answers versus the answer key. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I really want to help you out. I really, really want to be here to make sure that you understand this. The more solid you are in these skills, the easier the rest of the year is going to be. So reach out if you need anything, and have a great night.